The TIMSS assessment was conducted prior to the current crisis. But I think there's a huge amount of information that we can learn from. TIMSS shows you the condition of education systems around the world. For example, we learn from TIMSS that teachers are thinking that classrooms are already overcrowded to a large extent. And TIMSS can help policymakers to think about the systems and the conditions that they're in, and it can help to think about also how to maneuver best in the current crisis.
Teachers have become key players during the pandemic, and they have transformed from one day to the next education from a face-to-face instruction to an online teaching. And TIMSS shows us that they still have a lot of needs regarding professional development, especially regarding the integration of ICT in teaching and learning. So that means that a lot has to be done in that respect that policymakers can help them with. And also teachers mention in TIMSS that the lack of resources has an impact on instruction. And also during the pandemic, this has been shown because they've had to work with very few resources. So although there are many more messages, I think the one on teachers is key during this year.
I think one of the other things that's highlighted and that teachers will be interested in is the fact that we have had students who've had to have a heavy reliance on remote learning and heavy reliance on access to technology and computers, etc. And whether then those students have the experience to be able to do that, and also whether they have access to computers and to their equipment at home, as well as places, things like a quiet place to study and the right sort of tools. So those sort of things are reliant on some socioeconomic factors as well. And it will be interesting to tease out those differences so that we can start to look at, or teachers can start to look at, who are the students who are most likely to have been really profoundly affected by being away from school, away from resources, and away from their teachers.
I think obviously the educational environment has changed very significantly because of the COVID epidemic over the past year. So there has been a huge amount of educational disruption over the past year. But what's really interesting about the TIMSS 2019 study is that was done before this happened. So actually it's a really effective baseline measure of where things were at against which to measure the impact of the changes that have happened.
The TIMSS 2019 data provide a lens into what students knew and could do just prior to the educational disruption that occurred in the beginning of 2020. So trend data from the next round of TIMSS in 2023 may tell us more about the change in student achievement over this period of time. Also, TIMSS includes a large number of variables from the teacher, school, and student questionnaires, which could be informative in many ways. Some of these variables relate to computer use and access in both the teacher and student questionnaires, and that could shed some light onto the topic of virtual learning.
I think one other interesting aspect of TIMSS as well, in terms of the response to the disruption caused by the COVID pandemic, is of course that TIMSS is a truly international study, and the impacts of COVID have been truly international. So the comparisons between different countries and different approaches to education within the COVID environment are actually going to be very informative and very interesting going forward in terms of the way that educational systems are going to be arranged in that post-COVID era.